Burlingame has 11 different neighborhoods and a downtown to die for. While each of these neighborhoods is unique and awesome in their own way, there's some that are more popular places to live than others. So today, I want to show you my ultimate ranking of every single Burlingame neighborhood from worst to best. Some of these may surprise you. Keep in mind that what's worse for some is best for others, and this is just my opinion as someone who's lived in Burlingame my whole life and has helped over 200 families, couples, and individuals buy and sell here. I'm Raziel, and I'm going to share with you things that you won't find online anywhere else about what it's like living here from a local. So starting with number 11, we have Burlingame Gardens. It's a neighborhood just south of Broadway and east of Caltrain, near the Porsche Audi dealership and the 101 freeway, just north of Oak Grove and Burlingame High School. Now don't get me wrong, Burlingame Gardens has a ton to offer and it's really well located. I have many friends and clients who live here. It's walking distance to Burlingame High School, which is a huge plus, and also near Burlingame's Aquatic Center. So if you ever want to spend a nice day swimming or take the kids to lessons, this is your chance. As I said, it's just a few blocks from Broadway, so you can easily go out to eat and get whatever you need. And since Washington Park is also super close by, you get to enjoy your time there or walk around on a nice afternoon. And in just a few minutes more from Washington Park, you're in downtown Burlingame. However, Burlingame Gardens isn't just as popular as other Burlingame neighborhoods, and it's for Burlingame what you call more of a starter neighborhood. Prices in Burlingame Gardens are about mid $1 million range up to about mid $2 million range, and that makes it Burlingame's most affordable neighborhood, so hooray to that. You are paying the Burlingame premium though to live here in Burlingame Gardens, because you could also go buy a really nice 3-2 in San Mateo for about the same price. So if you want Burlingame real estate, Burlingame Gardens will absolutely check that box. However, that affordability definitely comes at the cost of very small homes and smaller lots. We're looking mostly at 2 to 3 bedroom homes, about 1,200 to 1,700 square feet, which is on the smaller side for Burlingame. So if you're just starting your Burlingame journey, I definitely recommend checking out Burlingame Gardens, even if it's not at the top of everyone's list. Next up, we have Burlingame Grove, another super cute neighborhood just north of Broadway. Burlingame Grove is known for its walkable streets and smaller homes. So if you're looking for another affordable option in Burlingame, this is another neighborhood to consider. Despite being lower on the list, I'd say that Burlingame Grove has a very clear highlight, especially its location, because it's with walking distance to Broadway, which means you have easy access to shops, restaurants, and all the amenities there. Plus, commuting is a breeze with the 101 freeway nearby, and also the Millbrae-Barton Caltrain station is just a short distance away. Another plus is if you have children on the younger side, Lincoln Elementary is also close by, just across El Camino. And as a heads up, it won't be the last time we're talking about Lincoln Elementary and other schools, so stay tuned to learn more. As for homes in Burlingame Grove, we're typically looking about 1,100 to 1,800 square feet, with most that kind of have about 2 to 3 bedrooms, similar to Burlingame Gardens. You will see some occasional newer builds in the neighborhood, kind of around the $4 million price point. And those are fantastic homes, like this amazing 4-bedroom home on Cappuccino, which had a pretty sweet floor plan. It was built by a reputable local builder. We also have 2 of the best streets in Burlingame and Burlingame Grove, Cambridge and Oxford. And of course, with names like that, no surprise, they better be gorgeous. And they really are. There's lots of cute homes, and there's very high tree density too. Burlingame Grove is also a little pricier than Burlingame Gardens, with a median home price of about $2.3 million. And this is more similar to what we'll be seeing in other neighborhoods in Burlingame. Overall, Burlingame Grove is a solid, well-located neighborhood that's also worth looking into if you don't mind smaller homes. Okay, now we're moving up a bit. In 9th place, we have Mills Estates, one of the 2 Burlingame neighborhoods way up on the hill. Mills Estates is just up by the 280 freeway and just south of Truesdale, which has a pretty suburban vibe with a more grid-like layout. The neighborhood is well planned because back in the 50s, the area was basically bulldozed over a couple-day period by the developers Truesdale and Murchison without the city's approval, and my understanding was kind of a little bit of a controversy back then. And if you look at the pictures, it doesn't look too great, but now the neighborhood looks fantastic because they were able to start it from scratch and make it really well planned. Mills Estates is full of larger homes with 3, 4, even 5 bedrooms, ranging from 1,800 square feet all the way up to 3,000 square feet. Being so high up on the hill though, you naturally get some pretty killer views and panoramic views, but this definitely comes at the cost of typical hillside living, which is less walkability, and which is why I'm kind of ranking this a little bit lower on my list, because more people want to be flat and walkable. Commuting from Mills Estates is pretty convenient though, because it's super close to 280. So if you work in the city or the valley, shooting up and down 280 is absolutely going to check that box for you. Burlingame Plaza is also nearby at the bottom of Truesdale, and it's pretty easy to pop down the hill and get whatever you need. Also, Franklin Elementary School is a short walk away. It's about halfway up the hill, just next to Truesdale, making it super accessible for the whole neighborhood, especially if you have young kids who are going to Franklin. Some families, depending on where they live in the neighborhood, can just walk their kids down to the school, but if you walk down, you just keep in mind, you've got to walk back up to. Or I guess your parents can come pick you up. Since it has much larger homes, the median price is about $2.8 million, which is more at the higher end for Burlingame. Another solid neighborhood up in the hills, but the views certainly make up for it. And now that I mentioned the hills, why don't we take a look at our next neighborhood on the list. For number 8, we have Mills Estate sibling, Burlingame Hills. Something I really like about Burlingame Hills is how private it is. It's very wooded, it's secluded, it's very different from Mills Estates, which has more of the grid-like feel. And in Burlingame Hills, it's a little bit more windy, but it's also one of the quietest parts of Burlingame. It's also located just south of Mills Estates, and it has some of the largest lots in all of Burlingame, with lot sizes ranging from 7 to 10,000 square feet. This extra space definitely adds to that sense of privacy that I was telling you about earlier. When we talk about median price for Burlingame Hills, we're kind of looking at about $3 million, which might seem pretty expensive, but considering the huge lots, it's definitely more affordable and gives you better value than other larger homes in Burlingame in the flatter neighborhoods. So if you're looking for something big, but at more of a reasonable price, Burlingame Hills might check that box. You want to be prepared for the trade-off of having fewer sidewalks, and most importantly, living way up the hill, but for people who do live there, they absolutely love it. And being up on the hill means you've got some pretty awesome views of the airport, so personally, I think it's worth it. Another good thing is that the Burlingame Hills is pretty close to 280 as well, which makes it really easy, like I was talking about for Mills Estates, to pop up to the city or down to the valley. Overall, I'd say the quiet and spacious feel of Burlingame Hills makes it a pretty good place to start a family. If you're looking to relocate to Burlingame, it's just one that you're gonna wanna for sure look into. Okay, up next, I wanna talk to you about a neighborhood that I just love, and that's one of my favorites, Burlingame Village, which is in the northern part of Burlingame, just north of Burlingame Grove. Burlingame Village is super flat and walkable. It's anchored by Village Park, which is great if you love the outdoors or if you have kids. It's just a fantastic place to go and hang out. I even had my 4th birthday party there. I don't remember it, but you can see the picture here. It does have an awesome soccer field, a little preschool, a playground, and a basketball court. Plus, Guitar Chocolate Company is right across the train tracks. So if you're in the neighborhood when they're making chocolate, literally the whole neighborhood smells like chocolate. It's pretty crazy. It's just like everyone in their houses is baking cookies and all the doors are open and there's like fans just pushing out that chocolate smell. It's like kind of hard to describe, but it's pretty cool. In terms of homes here in Burlingame Village, most are going to be kind of typical Burlingame with 3 bedrooms, but you also find some 2 and 4 bedroom ones. Burlingame Village is a great spot if you're just kind of starting your search in Burlingame, since the homes are relatively on the more affordable side than west of El Camino, where it's a little pricier. The other thing I love about Burlingame Village is you have several streets that are in cul-de-sacs like Hamilton, Clovelly, and Killarney, which is really not that common in Burlingame. So if you're into a cul-de-sac and you really value that, you're going to want to check that out. There's probably maybe 15 or 20 cul-de-sacs in the whole city. And with the median home price of about $2.1 million, it's kind of right in that sweet spot for entry-level Burlingame pricing, and then prices will kind of cap out around $3 million. If you want to hear the best of life in San Mateo County from a local, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I promise, the bigger the channel gets, the more videos I can put out, and all you have to do is subscribe, hit that like button. Thank you so much. All right, so now let's talk about another one of my favorites, which is Burlingame Terrace. There's many great things about this neighborhood, but first I'll just say I'm probably pretty decently qualified to speak about Burlingame Terrace, since I actually lived in the neighborhood from when I was 5 until I graduated from Burlingame High School, and my mom and dad still live in the neighborhood too. Probably the best thing about Burlingame Terrace is it's not only flat and walkable, which is not always the case in Burlingame, but because it's perfectly located, it's the kind of sweet central spot right between Burlingame Avenue to the south and Broadway to the north. So in that sense, Burlingame Terrace captures the award for most walkable and central neighborhood in all of Burlingame. Burlingame High School is also super close by, just across California Drive at Oak Grove, which is always a plus. There's the Burlingame Aquatic Center, the track and field, soccer fields, and everything else you'd expect. Burlingame High School campus kind of feels like a junior college, basically. We'll talk more about that later. Another thing I like about Burlingame Terrace is it has really good tree density. The trees in Burlingame is something that we're super proud of. It's not the highest of all neighborhoods in Burlingame for tree density, but it's certainly great. Burlingame has been a Tree City USA for over 30 straight years, and it's something that we're super proud of here. We have actually about 18,000 public trees in Burlingame, and if you can believe it, every tree is visited at least once every 5 years for a health checkup by the city. Okay, back to Burlingame Terrace. What I love about it, like most of Burlingame, is it has a good mix of homes with a lot of different architecture styles. So you'll find houses that are 2 to 4 bedrooms. Square footage kind of is about 12 to 2,200 square feet. There's some homes that are larger, but if you're looking for a larger home, you'll find higher densities of bigger homes in other neighborhoods, probably more likely west of El Camino. In terms of pricing, Burlingame Terrace is kind of right in the middle, with homes starting in the kind of low $2 million range and peaking in like the $3 million range. We've had a couple sales around $4 million, but that's kind of about it at the very high end. Okay, so the next neighborhood I want to show you is Lyon Hoag, one of Burlingame's flatter and most walkable neighborhoods, which I totally love. Lyon Hoag is a pretty stellar location too, and it's walkable. I mean, like 5 to 10 minutes basically. It's super amazing to get to downtown Burlingame, Burlingame Ave, which we basically call the Ave, and also Washington Park. So it just is very convenient for shopping, dining, and just going out and having a good time. Okay, so in terms of what does housing look like in Lyon Hoag, most of the neighborhood is 2 to 3 bedroom homes that are about 1,100 to 1,900 square feet. These homes are awesome for small families or those kind of looking to downsize. However, if you're in the market for something larger, we've been seeing more and more new construction homes in Lyon Hoag over the last few years, kind of starting with this awesome Spanish style spec home that sold a few years ago for $3.7 million on Burlingame Avenue. There's another one that sold a few years back on Bayswater, which was kind of one of the first spec homes in the neighborhood. And then there's another one on Dwight that's about to come on the market. But in general, bigger homes in Lyon Hoag are less common. Though there's huge demand for larger homes in Lyon Hoag, we just don't see a ton of them. Most lots in Lyon Hoag are about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, which is pretty common for Burlingame. And that'll get you a pretty decent yard size. You're more likely to get in here in an attached garage than detached garage, which personally is my choice because it's kind of nice if you want to do an ADU later, accessory dwelling unit, like a guest cottage in your backyard. You wouldn't want to take up your whole yard with the garage and ADU, though you could convert the garage to an ADU, but then where are you going to store all your kids' bikes and all that Kirkland toilet paper? I don't know, but it's good to have that space. There's some larger lots here, and those are going to be around like 7,500 square feet, and those are mostly on Bloomfield and Clarendon and also Arundel, and that's awesome if you're so fortunate enough to own one of those on a bigger lot. Okay, what's pricing like in Lyon Hoag? Median pricing is about $2.3 million, which is kind of in the middle range for Burlingame. But it is fair to say you're going to kind of start in the low $2 million range and then go up to about $4 million or so, maybe a little bit more for something bigger and newer. Overall though, Lyon Hoag is just a super nice and charming neighborhood with a good location and relatively affordable homes. And I mean relatively because it's all pretty expensive here. So in fourth place, we have Burlingame's northernmost neighborhood, Ray Park. Okay, so now we're entering our top neighborhoods with this one, and for good reason. Ray Park is not only a neighborhood, but also has a park inside of it named Ray Park. The park is a hub for playing baseball and soccer. There's a ton of activities here. There's a dog park that just opened recently, so it's just a great place to go. Ray Park is also super popular for families because it's literally right next door to Lincoln Elementary School. Okay, so now let's talk about real estate in Ray Park, which is pretty much going to be ranch-style homes from the 50s and 60s, many of which have been beautifully updated over the years. Most of these were originally built as 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and ranch-style floor plans are among my absolute favorite because with ranch-style homes, you usually get open concept floor plans, which are super popular now, of course, where the kitchen opens to the yard. You usually get an attached 2-car garage, which is just amazing because you don't get too many of those in Burlingame, even if your budget was $5 or $6 million. And they're just not as old as other homes in Burlingame, and that's a frequent complaint because older homes maybe could have more issues perhaps. On the positive, I've seen a ton of people add on second stories in the neighborhood, so if you were to go do a drive around yourself, you would think a lot of these were originally built as 2 bedrooms, but to my knowledge, they were all built originally as 1 bedrooms. You can also find some newer homes in the neighborhood, about 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, so if you're looking for something on the bigger side, you're going to be able to check that box there. It's important to say that the market has been growing a lot in recent years in Ray Park, and just 4 years ago, Ray Park was known as, oh, it's never been affordable, of course, but prices have really shot up there, especially in the last few years. So in terms of pricing in Ray Park, median's going to be about $3.4 million, but that's going to be a lot below and a few above that price range too. I sold a couple homes in Ray Park that were on massive 10,000 square foot or more lots up on Valdivia and kind of area that I like to call Upper Ray Park, and that backed up to Franklin Elementary School. It's a little bit of a kind of upslope there, but it's a really private pocket, and if you're looking for something that's kind of very close but feels like it's a little more private, Upper Ray Park could check the box for you. All right, so we're finally entering our top 3 neighborhoods, and the next neighborhood might shock some Burlingame locals out there. In third place, we have Easton Addition. Yes, perhaps maybe that's a controversial pick, but this is a subjective list and we're ranking everything. All of Burlingame is awesome, so we just got to do this. Okay, Easton Addition is one of the most popular neighborhoods in Burlingame for good reason, and many people would argue that it should be number 1. I think Easton has tons going for it, which is why I'm giving it a spot in the top 3, and it's something that, in my experience, every Burlingame buyer who I've worked with feels like Easton deserves to be kind of at the top of the list, if not at the top, especially if their budget is at the higher end of the range for Burlingame. However, in my opinion, 2 other neighborhoods do rank higher than that, so if you want to know which ones they are, stick around for just a few more minutes. So first off, Easton Addition is definitely one of the most sought after neighborhoods in all of Burlingame, if not the most sought after. All of its streets are completely tree lined, so it's great for walking around, just has that really strong community feel that most people really want in a neighborhood. There's a reason why everyone goes trick-or-treating here, and it's completely insane here on Halloween. It is ground zero for trick-or-treating in Burlingame. There's 1,500 homes, and there's a few streets where things just basically go off. Like people are doing crazy decorations, kids are coming from other cities, there's thousands of people out having a good time, and it kind of ranks up there on my trick-or-treating scale with Aragon and San Mateo and Baywood, and also Eucalyptus Street in San Carlos. So if you really want, go check out all 3 of those over 3 years. Like like I have, and it's kind of off the charts. So another thing that adds to the community feel in Easton Addition is it has its own branch of the Burlingame Public Library. How crazy is that? Okay, so Burlingame Public Library actually was ranked a few years ago the #2 library system in California for towns under 40,000 people. #1 was Beverly Hills. Okay, so our library system is fantastic and it's pretty cool. So like I said, this is the only neighborhood in Burlingame that does have its own branch of the library aside from the main one downtown. And a little over 10 years ago, the Burlingame community got together, raised over $1 million to renovate the library. In the summertime, you'll see families with kids walking over to the library in the evening for story time in their jammies, and it's just the cutest thing. Another thing I love about Easton Addition are its homes because there's a huge variety of diverse architecture. Homes are kind of about 1,500 to 1,600 square feet on the smaller side. Bigger ones are going to be 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, like we kind of talked about before. The median home price in Easton Addition is close to $3 million, and that's because you're going to see a lot of smaller homes, kind of more at the low twos, and you see some bigger new construction homes in the $4 to $5.5 million range. So like I mentioned, Easton Addition has about 1,500 homes. Burlingame has 6,200 homes overall. So you have about 1/4 of every home that is selling in Burlingame is going to be selling in Easton Addition. Easton Addition is also the neighborhood where if you're looking for a new or newer construction, 3,000 square foot home on a 6,000 square foot lot, I kind of call that a 3,000 on a 6,000. You're definitely going to be able to check that box in Easton Addition, probably more than any other neighborhood. Price-wise, you're going to kind of be looking at like the low to mid $4 million range for something built in the 90s or early 2000s. I've kind of done a couple off-market transactions recently, just like that, where my clients paid mid fours. One of them is going to keep the property the way it is. Another one's going to do a significant refresh to kind of make it more like in the lower fives, kind of like a newer build. So you could do that, or if you just want new construction, they don't pop up too often, but that's going to cost you about $5 to $5.5 million for a new construction house. So all that being said, Easton Addition completely deserves a spot among the best neighborhoods in Burlingame because of its diversity of different types of homes, the community feel, and just it's really fantastic. But are there any neighborhoods that could top all of that? Okay, let's welcome our runner-up for the best neighborhood, which some might have seen coming. Say hello to Burlingame Gables. Burlingame Gables is one of Burlingame's most popular neighborhoods. If Easton Addition had tree-lined streets, then Burlingame Gables is a complete tree paradise because it actually has the highest tree density in the entire city. The neighborhood is super close to the new $52 million Burlingame Community Center, which has tons of classes for kids, summer camps, it's a hub of activities for families, and even has a senior room too. It's near downtown Burlingame and Burlingame Avenue, which means wherever you are in the neighborhood, you're gonna be super close to shopping, restaurants, I mean, kind of everything basically. Burlingame Gables is also close to Washington Park with 3 cul-de-sacs that back up to the park. Aside from that, Burlingame Gables has its own baseball field at Washington Park. It's also home to the Burlingame Historical Society and super close to Burlingame High School. Okay, so let's talk about real estate in Burlingame Gables. You're typically gonna find smaller homes here than you will west of El Camino, like in Easton Addition or other pockets. Most of the homes here are gonna be 2 to 3 bedrooms and range from about 1,000 to 1,900 square feet, with newer construction homes that are about 2,700 square feet. Most of the lot sizes here are gonna be closer to 5,000 square feet, which is a little bit smaller than other areas that typically have 6,000. But the positive though is that most of these homes have attached garages, so you do in fact get a pretty legit yard where you can easily pop an ADU in the back and not be competing with space like you would be if you had a detached garage in the back there. Okay, in terms of pricing, you're kind of looking at the low to mid $2 million range for a really cute 2-bedroom home. The most expensive 2 bedrooms in Burlingame typically sell in the Burlingame Gables neighborhood because of that flexibility, how easy it is to walk around. And then a 3-bedroom home that's been remodeled is gonna kind of be plus or minus $3 million. The most expensive one sold a few years ago for $3.3 million. And some homes here sell for over $4 million. So people would pay a lot more to live here if the homes were bigger, but just the lot size kind of limits that. So Burlingame Gables is definitely kind of on the higher end, but with so much going on for it, like kind of what else can you expect? We just looked at 10 completely different neighborhoods right here in Burlingame, but they're still missing, in my opinion, the very best of the best. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Burlingame's top neighborhood, Burlingame Park. Burlingame Park is probably Burlingame's most exclusive neighborhood. And by exclusive in Burlingame, you know, it just means it's probably a little bit more expensive. It's not like you're seeing huge homes with big gates in front like you would in some parts of Hillsborough. First of all, Burlingame Park is a fantastic location. You're just west of El Camino, to the east of Hillsborough, and extremely walkable to Burlingame Avenue and downtown, which is a huge selling point for most people who live there. So it's basically kind of like Easton Addition, roughly, but walking distance to Burlingame Avenue. You're also gonna find some pretty large lots in Burlingame Park and tree-lined, pancake flat streets, which kind of gives Burlingame Park a charming and even historic feel. Actually, the neighborhood is considered a historic neighborhood from a construction perspective, so it's the only neighborhood in Burlingame where if you bought a home and you wanted to tear it down, you couldn't do so without going through the planning commission and finding out if the home is first deemed historic. You'll also find Pershing Park in the neighborhood, which is a bit of a smaller park, but it's famous this in Burlingame? Well, I don't know if everyone knows it, but I think it's pretty cool. It has the only kids basketball hoop in all of Burlingame, which we've been to a number of times. Okay, now let's talk about real estate in Burlingame Park. It's for sure on the bigger side, with most starter homes around 17 to 1900 square feet. And then you're gonna get up to 3,000 to 4,000 square feet easily for some of the bigger ones. So you're gonna get a ton of remodeled and new construction homes. And there's a really cool variety in architecture that I think is worth mentioning. And I've done transactions in Burlingame Park in the $6 million range and $7 million range. And when I did those transactions, not only were they the best homes in Burlingame that I've seen, but they were also record prices at the time. Okay, so if you're into luxury living and you want to explore your options, Burlingame Park is going to be at the top of your list. And some people will prefer Burlingame Park over Hillsborough because you can just walk to downtown and have a Hillsborough type of house. So while this definitely can be a lot to remember, and obviously I can't go into extreme detail on every neighborhood in Burlingame and compare all the differences, you can find a complete comparison in the description. I made a little bit of a breakdown on each Burlingame neighborhood with the pros and cons, its amenities, home prices, and more. You can download for free using the link below. So if you've made it this far, there's a chance perhaps you're thinking about buying or selling in San Mateo County. If that's the case, I'd love to be your Peninsula real estate resource of choice. Shoot me an email or give me a call or shoot me a text. All my info is in the description below to get started. As the #1 agent in Burlingame, a top 10 realtor in San Mateo County, and a local, I know San Mateo County inside and out, and I'd love to help you. But before you leave, if you like this video and want to see why I love living in Burlingame, then you need to check out my walking tour downtown. I've linked to that up here. You can watch that next. As a local born and raised and still living in Burlingame, I'll show you all the hidden gems and give you a taste of what it's really like living in Burlingame. So make sure to come back soon, and I'll see you on the next video.